This chapter presents the various parts of the research, namely background of the study, statement of the problem, hypothesis testing, conceptual framework, significance of the study, scope and the limitations of the study, and definition of terms.
This study was conducted to know the impacts of train law to the profitability of concessionaires in PHINMA-UPang. This study aims to answer the following questions. 1. What is the profile of the respondents in terms of following variables? A. Age. B. Sex. Number 2. What are the perceptions of the concessionaires towards train law in PHINMA-UPang? 3. What is the level of business profitability of the concessionaires in PHINMA-UPang because of the train law? Number 4. Is there a significant impact of train law to the profitability of concessionaires in PHINMA-UPang?
The result of this study shall serve as a guide to provide more knowledge and show the good and bad impacts of train law to the profitability of concessionaires in PHINMA-UPang that will be beneficial to the various sectors. Number 1, the Philippines. Number 2, the government. Number 3, the community. Number 4, the school. Number 5, the concessionaires. Number 6, students and teachers. Number 7, parents. And lastly, number 8, the future researchers.
The focus of the study was to determine the impacts of tax reform for acceleration and inclusion or train law in PHINMA-UPang. Also, this was designed to have true knowledge about train law.
This study is limited to the selection of respondents since there are many concessionaires in PHINMA-UPang, and not all of the consumers are knowledgeable about train law. This study was done through the utilization of the same questionnaires given as a data reference. For the convenience of each and every researcher, random concessionaires were chosen to furnish them with the information needed. The findings in this research were acquired only for PHINMA-UPang on the first semester academic year 2019 to 2020.
Being aware of how train law affects the profit of all the concessionaires in PHINMA-UPang motivated us to do this research. This research helps all the concessionaires be aware of how big of an impact train law is to their businesses.
Our research is very interesting because our topic, train law, involves many people, including concessionaires and consumers.
ABS-CBN News in 2018 and Father Saturnino Urios University in 2018. As a result of our findings, they have contributed most of the impact of train law to the profitability of concessionaires.
This chapter covers the detailed explanation of methodology used to make this research flow smoothly and complete accordingly. These chapters present the discussion of various parts of the research, namely research design, local of study, respondents, data gathering procedure, data gathering instrument, and statistical treatment of data. Used furthermore, the chapter explain how to necessary data and information to address the research objective, and questions shall be collected, presented, and analyzed.
The research method that we use is descriptive correlational. We choose it because it describes the characteristic of the phenomenon being studied. So we believe that it will be easier for us to do it.
The study focused on a targeted population involved in the main objectives of train law in the Philippines. The respondents for this research defined to include the different concessionaires in PHINMA-UPang, in which it has a total population of 15. which 14 of them will be the respondents of the study. We look at the numbers of the respondents needed for a statistically accurate survey. Here are the steps to take. Number 1. Know your population. In this research, we have 15 concessionaires size of the population. Number 2. Decide on your margin of error. In this study, the confidence interval is 5%. Number 3. Pick your confidence level. The confidence level is 95% since the margin of error is 5%. And lastly, doing the math. 15 sample size multiplied to the confidence interval of 5%. The equation will end up being sample size of 15 multiplied by the margin of error, which is 0.05, and the product will be 0.75. 15 sample size is subtracted to 0.75 translated margin of error. The difference will be 14.25, or approximately 14 respondents.
In this study, the instrument we used was a researcher-made questionnaire to gather the needed data from the selected respondents in University of Pangasinan. By the use of these structured questionnaires in this study, the cost of being a least expensive means of gathering data was successfully acquired. The advantage of starting early gave us a sufficient amount of time considering that some of our members were late. We divided ourselves into pairs of two and excluded one to take pictures needed for documentation. To make sure of the respondents' willingness and voluntary participation, we always started with a formal greeting and formal asking for permission, with the distribution of validation letters that has been signed and approved. Afterwards, we gathered all the answers, analyzed, and evaluated it thoroughly using tables. The collected data were interpreted, validated, and transcribed. Before the respondents answered the questionnaires, we observed that there was unawareness, lack of information, and misinformation about the research topic. In order to give them valid information, we explained the main objectives and basic information about trade law.
The data that gathered by the researchers were carefully tallied, analyzed, and interpreted using statistical tools to discover the impacts of train law to the profitability of concessionaires in PHINMA University of Pangasinan. The researchers used frequency count, average weighted mean, and correlational coefficient. To answer problem number 1, the researchers used the frequency counts and percentage distribution, and the formula will be F over N multiplied by 100, where F is equals to total response of respondents, N is equals to total respondents. The formula represented on the screen will be used to answer problems number 2 and 3. The researchers use average weighted mean. To answer problem number 4, the researchers use the Pearson R, or the correlation coefficient, to test the hypothesis, and the formula will be shown.
This section presents the profile of 14 respondents in terms of age and sex. For statistical treatment of data gathered and collected, the frequency count and percentage distribution was used. The first part of the table depicts the frequency distribution of the male and female respondents of the research. A total of 21.43% of respondents are male, while 78.57% of the respondents are female. The second part of the table shows the frequency distribution of the range of age of the respondent. 28.57% are under 25. 35.71% are 25 to 34. 14.29% are aged 35 to 44, while 21.43% are aged 45 or above.
This section presents the perception towards train law of the 14 respondents based on the indicator statements as provided on the table for the statistical treatment of data gathered and collected the average weighted mean was used. The transmitted description of the respondents' perception of train law of the respondents was moderate, with a descriptive equivalent of uncertain and 2.86 average weighted mean.
This section presents the level of business profitability of the 14 respondents based on the indicator statement as provided on the table. For statistical treatment data collected and gathered, the average weighted mean was used. The transmitted description of the level of business profitability of the respondent was moderate, with a descriptive equivalent of uncertain and 2.87 average weighted mean. Almost all of the indicator statements gathered a moderate transmitted description. The findings imply that the respondents are experiencing hardship that are bothering with their levels of business profitability, but still manageable.
This section presents the relationship between perception on train law and profitability of the respondents. For the statistical treatment of data gathered and collected, Pearson or correlation was used. In confirming whether to accept or reject the null hypothesis, we computed for the value of R.
The data show that there is significant relationship between the perception of train law and profitability of concessionaires in PHINMA University of Pangasinan. As the result showed, a total of 0.55, which means there is indeed moderate correlation. Therefore, the null hypothesis was rejected. The implementation of train law can clearly affect and have an impact to the business or products of the school that they desire to purchase.
This chapter presented the summary findings, conclusion, based on findings, and recommendation drawn from the conclusion. The findings of the study were ordered accordingly to the specific sub-problems stated to the first chapter. This study's main problem is to determine the impacts of train law to the profitability of concessionaires in PHINMA University of Pangasinan. This study was correlational, for it demanded the degree to which the variables were related to each other using statistical instruments. These samples included 14 concessionaires of the entire University of Pangasinan. The main instruments used were checklists and rating scale. The researchers utilized the frequency distribution, average weighted mean, correlational between train law and the profitability of the concessionaires. To analyze the collected data, the study was performed on June 2019 to September 2019.
Based on the findings of the study, the following conclusions were drawn. Number 1. The business with persistence of achieving its goal is necessary in need of strong mind in planning progress for its success. Building a business has no age and gender. It can state the fact that anybody is able to do it as long as they are good in handling it. Number 2. Some concessionaires don't have sufficient knowledge towards train law due to the possible reasons. First, they are not affected by train law due to not being able to meet the 21,000 pesos monthly standard earnings. Second, some of them are minimum wage earners. Lastly, the implementation of train law is still fresh for them since it is implemented last 2017 only. Number 3. Having a business, there's a lot of trials to encounter. It is hard for businesses to succeed because of the competition and/or the demand of the product and dependent to the consumer. Number 4. Train law affects the concessionaire's profit due to price hikes. Since there is an increase in their price, buyer and even owners will think twice about buying such items regularly. The consumers will have to adjust by the changes.
We have 4 recommendations. 1. Schools should not depend on the gender or how young or old the concessionaires they are hiring, as long as they are persistent and they can handle the job consistently. 2. Concessionaires should be aware of the implementation of train law because it would also impact their business and for them to also have a backup plan in case that happens. 3. Concessionaires should choose what they are going to sell for them to not compete with other sellers with the same product. 4. It would be great for the concessionaires to sell only those necessary and things that they are always being bought with reasonable price for them to have a consistent business.
The original in this research are the questionnaires, the analysis of data, the interpretation of findings, the summary, conclusions, recommendations, and lastly, we did this research by ourselves.
The strongest part of our research is the topic itself, because we make use of it to inform concessionaires on UPang that there is a law that increases their taxes. The weakest part of our research are the respondents, because not all of the population of our respondents are not aware to the effect of train law, since it was just implemented last 2017.
If we are going to conduct our study again, we would like to change our respondent because train law doesn't only affect the concessionaires, it can also affect the consumers or how the train law affects the consumers.
If we could go back to the start of our research, we will change the respondents. However, we will take all the advices of our teachers accordingly and wisely to finish it properly.
Train law amends an outdated, inefficient, and unfair tax system while raising enough funds to enable the country to reach its potential. Our ability to tackle this new issue, train law, is a major contribution to the society and to the body of knowledge. We contributed a lot in providing new views and helped answer this country's question: has train law met its goals and